Hi, and welcome to this next episode of the Living Life Being Human podcast. And I'm Jackie Jones from Jackie Jones Coaching. And I just wanted to say a big thank you to all my listeners. I've had over 2,200 listeners now, which is absolutely amazing. I started this podcast probably about 18 months ago. I wasn't very consistent at the beginning. I will hold my hand up to that, but I am being much more consistent with it now. And I've struggled this week over looking for a topic to do this episode on. I'm not sure why. We're on episode 59 now, and sometimes I come on and things flow and everything is wonderful, and I push record and post it up, and that's it done. Don't really think about it again. For some reason this week I've procrastinated and overthought it, and I've been sat here for almost 2 hours now, recording and stopping and waffling and doing lots of strange things. I'm not going to question why. I'm not going to judge myself or be critical. I'm just going to step aside and do something a little bit different. So I got a book out, and it's one of my psychotherapy books, and I thought I'm just going to open the page and see what comes up, and then that's going to be the topic vaguely of my podcast, and I will talk around it with whatever flows. I'm just going to trust my wisdom. I'm just going to go with it. I want to say I'm going to wing it, but that doesn't sit very well with me because I do like to plan and do things. So it's going to be a little bit different, this one. So we'll just run with it and see what happens. So anyway, I opened my book, my psychotherapy book, and it opened up on something which I think is quite interesting. The universe sometimes throws us these things and we just have to run with it. So I'm going to run with it. On this page is it's quite a well-known poem in therapy worlds, and it's called Autobiography in 5 Short Chapters, and it's by Portia Nelson. So I'm going to read it through once, and then I'm going to go back and talk a little bit about my interpretation of what this means. Bear in mind that my interpretation of what this means is going to be connected with the way that I'm feeling at the moment, and it will probably change if I read this again to you next week, next year, next month, whatever it is. So, an autobiography in 5 short chapters by Portia Nelson. Chapter 1. I walk down the street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I am lost. I am helpless. It isn't my fault. It takes forever to find a way out. Chapter 2. I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I am in the same place. But it isn't my fault. It still takes a long time to get out. Chapter 3. I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it is there. I still fall in. It's a habit. My eyes are open. I know where I am. It is my fault. I get out immediately. Chapter 4. I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. Chapter 5. I walk down another street. It's quite profound. I can remember years and years and years ago when I first read that poem. I was doing a short course at a local adult college doing person-centered. That was my first taste on therapy, was to do a 12-month course on person-centered counselling. I don't know why, but person-centered didn't sit right with me, so I only did 12 months. It must be 15 years ago that I did that, because my 16-year-old son was just born. He was sort of nine months old, I think he was, when I did that course. And that was the first time I heard this. And I just thought, wow, that is so profound. And I can remember I came home and spoke to my then husband about it, and he just made fun of it and said, well, that's just ridiculous. Why would you fall down the same hole? Just stupid. Was there not bollards around it? And he was just making fun of it and making light. But for me, it was quite a profound thing. So I'm going to go back and just read a chapter at a time, and then maybe just explore that and talk a little bit about where my thoughts are around that. So the first chapter, this is all based around therapy, and the way that I interpret it now, and I probably did then, was, making a change. One, out of our awareness, going through life blinkered and not even knowing what's happening, through the process of becoming aware of our behavior, of our life script, of our choices, but not feeling able to do anything different about it, to being aware of it and choosing a different path and doing something different, to, being completely authentic and knowing what life is all about, which is quite profound. So the first chapter, I walk down the street, there is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in, I am lost, I am helpless. It isn't my fault, it takes forever to find my way out. So for me, like I said, where my state of mind is today and how I'm interpreting that is looking at, my overthinking, my procrastinating. That's the deep hole in the sidewalk. That's kind of where I am at the moment, and I don't quite know how to get out of it. And that's okay. I know now that this is all going to shift. I've been down that road so many times. I've fallen in that hole so many times that I kind of know the process and I know how it works. But if I look back to myself, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I would probably have stayed in that hole for a lot longer than what I needed to do, trying to work my way out of it. And, why is this happening to me? And I've not done anything to deserve all this stuff that life's throwing at me. And lots of outside in thinking as opposed to inside out thinking. The next chapter, I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I am in the same place. But it isn't my fault. It still takes me a long time to get out of it. So this next chapter says, I pretend I don't see it, which to me is quite interesting. So I know that the hole's there, but it's called discounting in psychotherapy terms. It's kind of like, yeah, I know it's there, but I'm just going to ignore it. Doesn't mean that we don't still replay the same behavior and I don't fall in that same hole of procrastinating and overthinking and trying to get it right and all those things. But I'm pretending that something's different. I'm pretending that this time it wasn't like the time before. And it still takes me a long time to get out. I often talk about escalators, and when our state of mind is in a low place, that we're kind of, our world shrinks and we can't see things very clearly. And that's how I interpret that hole, that literally I can't see outside of that hole. I can't see anything more than what I'm in at the moment, because my thoughts are just, very noisy. That internal dialogue and all that self-critical stuff is going on, so I can't hear anything else. The next chapter, I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it is there. I still fall in. It's a habit. That's quite an important bit. It's a habit. Often the things we do are quite habitual. It's familiar. Being in that hole might feel crap. It might feel overwhelming. It might feel dark and scary and all sorts of stuff. But we know how it works. It becomes habitual behavior, whether that's around anxiety or overthinking or procrastinating or berating ourselves. It becomes familiar behavior. So we're not even aware that we're doing it. We're not pretending we've not seen it. We're just not aware that that's what's happening. And again, it's that process of learning more about ourselves, being honest and open and authentic. Therapy, counseling, all these sort of things kind of shines a light on the whole, if that makes sense. So it's habitual behavior. My eyes are open. I know where I am. It is my fault, and I get out immediately. So this is kind of the middle bit to making a change. I understand that this is nothing to do with outside influences. The way that my state of mind is today, the way that I'm procrastinating over doing this podcast and how I feel, is not because of anything external. It's because of my internal thoughts and my internal process that this has happened. So my eyes are open. I know where I am, and I know this is down to me. And that's not being judgmental or critical of myself. It's just being really authentic and knowing, actually, today it's been a bit pants. There's not a lot I can do about it. I'm just going to be okay with it because I know that this will pass. And in that sense, I don't stay in the hole. I get out. Episode 4 or chapter 4. It's an episode. It's like a journal. This is. I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. So I notice the hole. I acknowledge that the hole is there. I understand that it's a habit, and I also understand that it's because of my thoughts and my behavior, what's going on. So I know that there's a hole, and I walk around it. So I've not fallen in it, but I've not really changed my behavior enough yet. So it's kind of like, I often talk with clients when we're doing this, it's like 1 step forward and 2 steps backwards sometimes. And it's like peeling the layers back on an onion. I don't know if you peel onions or not, but there's like the big thick bit of the onion, and then underneath it there's that little slimy sticky bit that, you know, isn't very pleasant if you get that in your teeth or whatever it is. But once we get through that, we kind of go along a bit more thinking, yep, life's good, I've got this sorted, I know what I'm doing. And then life throws us a curveball, and we go down another layer and another layer. And it's kind of like a constant process of self-discovery. We're walking down that same street. We don't even see the hole. We're falling and haven't got a bloody clue what's happening. Then we walk down that same street and we pretend that the hole isn't there. So we're kind of, yeah, there's something wrong, but I'm not even going to acknowledge it. Then we notice the hole and we fall straight into it, and it's habitual behavior that we're doing. Then we know that there's a hole there and we walk around it. So we're starting to change and shift and acknowledge what's going on. And the final chapter, I walk down another street. So to me, that is where change has happened. That's where we're not going down the same street. We're not replaying the same habitual behavior. We're making a conscious decision to do something different. It's kind of like, you know, keeping our hands on the steering wheel and not cruising. We're actually starting to direct it, looking at where we want to be, goal setting, all those sorts of things. So that's my take on that poem, which, like I said, it was about 15 years ago the first time I heard that, and it was profound then. And every time I read it, it something else comes up for me. So I hope you've enjoyed this podcast episode. It's been a bit of a freewheeler one with not a lot of well, I haven't had any notes on it and haven't done any bullet points or anything, but it's quite interesting that the one thing that I was going to talk about on this was, what would I say to my younger self? That was the topic, because I did a meme on it on my Facebook social media this week, and I think maybe I'd have read her that poem. She wouldn't have understood it. She would have thought, you haven't got a clue what you're talking about. But it's about, you know, like I said, it's about our life script. It's about our beliefs, and it's about habitual behavior, that sometimes we don't even know that we're in habitual behavior. We think we're aware of what we're doing, when the reality is we're just doing what's familiar to us. And that to me is scripted behavior. Sometimes I know I'm in my scripted behavior. Sometimes if I'm, you know, overthinking things and procrastinating, it's annoying, but it's familiar to me because I know that's part of my process and it's what I do. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. If you have anything to say, you can contact me, Jackie@jackiejones.co.uk.